Welcome to the Ailm Practice Education Series in partnership with Firm Media, delivering concise and impactful insights for aesthetic and specialty medical practices. Your host, Chris Solhonik.
And today we have a very special guest, Steve Look, the founder and CEO of Paradigm Search Group. Steve, I know you have 24 years of experience in the industry.
Yes, sir.
Steve's now specializing in specialty medical physician recruitment. We've had the opportunity to talk about this. You've even worked with some of the Firm Media clients. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you ended up doing what you do.
You bet. Yeah, I graduated a degree in finance and was recruited into one of the big physician recruitment firms and started basically right out of college, got in the business, ended up joining what was a startup that we grew to be one of the largest all specialty firms in the space. Stayed on as CEO of that company until 2020, until ultimately launched Paradigm Search Group. What I identified is that, particularly in private practice specialty recruitment, there was really a gap of support for a lot of practices, and wanted to start a company that was able to work directly with primarily ownership groups to support their growth and succession planning strategies. And so that's what we do. It's been a lot of fun. We continue to grow and have had a lot of success in the space.
I know you have, and I know that you do very good work. I've talked about this with you before recently, I think, is in San Diego as well. There's a lot of people on the trade show floor. But there's a group of people on the trade show floor that are there to do business, what I refer to as the 1%. And the reason that I know that you're in the 1% is because I try to have the 1% of the 1%ers on the podcast. And when I mention your name to those people, they always respond favorably. And I know that's because of how you show up and how professional you show up for things. Just a little bit of insight about that and what that means to you to show up and do business.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, the focus for us is service excellence. And so serving clients, serving customers is number one for us. That's our priority. And we feel like if we do a good job for them, then the business will grow. And it really is how we've grown the business, is primarily through referrals. You know, it's a small world in specialty medical, and we've been able to provide good service and quality results, and that's really helped fuel our growth. And that's also what we enjoy. You know, it's in 24 years in the business. What I enjoy is working, again, directly with ownership or ownership groups to help them meet their goals. And so for us, it's a lot of fun to work in the space, and we've been fortunate to watch the business grow as a result of that.
Sure. Well, so at Firm Media, we use the phrase specialty medical as well. What does that mean to you?
So our core client base is going to be a private practice, founder, owner, surgeon groups. We do work with other large systems in the space and so forth, but our bread and butter is really going to be that practice that was founded by the current owner and has grown. And usually when they approach us, it's for one of two reasons. One is that they are looking to grow the practice. They've established a platform and they want to grow, or they have built a successful practice and are beginning to look over the horizon, thinking about the next step, thinking about retirement or a transition, and they want help in trying to affect finding a successor or look at other options. And so that's where we come in and we help primarily in those two areas. And again, we've been able to help provide some solutions on what can really be a daunting endeavor. So we help guide them on what their options are and what their goals are, and then we try to see if we can match them with a suitable candidate that's going to help both of those individuals achieve their goals.
Sure. Thank you for that clarification. So I'm going to jump into the sort of the meat of the show. We've talked about this before. The format for the show is that I ask 3 questions. I've talked to you about what these 3 questions are. I've talked to you about what these 3 questions are before the show. And the reason that we talk about what these 3 questions are is because I know you're an expert. I know you offer a certain level of expertise and you solve problems for aesthetic and specialty medical practices. What I want to do is I want to ask the appropriate questions that are going to help our listeners get down to the bottom of what you do and how you can help them. So I'm going to dive in with question number 1. For surgeons approaching or nearing retirement who want to find a successor, but do not know where to start, what insight do you have to guide them through the process?
I think it's really a question that's top of mind for a lot of surgeons out there as we have an aging physician population. And the first thing I would say is that starting sooner than later is a key. A lot of times we speak to a surgeon owner and they've waited until the very, very end. And unfortunately, there's not often enough time to go through the process of finding a successor. So the first thing I would say is be proactive about that. A lot of times people will ask us, well, what's the right amount of time? And it varies per each client's situation. But I would say that ideally 5 years, at minimum 3 years in most cases, before they would plan to exit or would like to potentially retire or scale back, would be the right time to begin the process, because it does take time. Part of our process includes coming out, doing an on-site consultation with them to really understand their organization, talk about their goals, and then help them create a structure to engage a successor. And once that is set up, then we will go out and actually begin the process of matching them with a potential surgeon. And the whole process takes time. It can be up to a year before that person is found, and that, or sometimes even longer, before they actually begin work. So I think a proactive approach in this area is key. The other thing that we commonly see amongst our client base is that they have perhaps tried this once or sometimes multiple times already.
Sure.
And they'll say, Steve, look, we've been down this road. I hired a young surgeon X months or X years ago, and it didn't work out. So I'm leery that this could actually work. Maybe they've tried it a couple of times and had a couple of bad outcomes. It's not uncommon, is the first thing I would say. So if you have tried it and it didn't work, don't despair. That's not to say it can't work, but having guidance on finding the right match, I think, is really important. And then making sure that you have a group, meaning your staff, everybody involved, who's really keyed in on this endeavor, is also a really important step. The first thing that I counsel my clients, I say, let's begin with the end in mind. What is our goal?
Sure.
When do we want to get there? And now let's begin backing into that process. So it's a 100-step process, and it does take time. But I think a proactive approach and a very clear plan is important. One thing that we know doesn't work, unfortunately, is a lot of times we'll talk to a client who says, well, I was introduced to a candidate that, looked compelling for whatever reason, geographic ties to the area, surgical interest, etc. And I told them, I'm open. You tell me what you want and we'll work it out. Fortunately, that does not work, because the surgeon coming to them generally does not have a wealth of business experience. So they're not sure how this whole thing's supposed to work. And it becomes a little bit nebulous, and generally they're going to back off of that and gravitate towards something that's more clear, right? Similar to the other steps of their career up to this point. So one of the big things that we help our clients to do, and that I recommend to a client who's thinking about doing this, is to create a structure, at least a framework of one, on how this is going to go. Ownership transition, compensation, these things are very important, because candidates are going to gravitate towards clarity. Sure. And they're going to shy away from what is ambiguous.
Good candidates are going to gravitate towards
Absolutely.
clarity.
That's the only ones we talk to, right?
Yeah.
But yes, and so I think some structure, some clarity, a plan is really important, and I think a lot of times that's what is missing when they begin this enterprise of finding a partner or a successor.
Sure. This wasn't a question that I had planned to ask you, but seems relevant. You're talking about people approaching or nearing retirement, that you can help them find a successor or a junior to sort of take over. How many of the verticals that you're in are being influenced, or private equity is either entering or has entered?
Yeah, our primary core client base is within plastic surgery, right?
Sure.
And so within the world of plastic, as you of course know firsthand, we've seen an influx of private equity over the last couple of years. And so that's definitely a relevant piece of the puzzle right now as that surgeon is considering their next move, right? And so that's definitely a part of it. I know you and I were both in San Diego for ASPS. I sat in on one of the sessions that where there was a lot of input about private equity's involvement and some of the outcomes. And I always tell my clients that it makes sense to evaluate all options and see again what is going to reach the end goal. It could be partnering or some kind of acquisition event, or it could be that is ultimately not going to be worthwhile for them, and they feel it would be more likely or better for them and the staff to just stay independent and hire, bring on a successor. We do help them evaluate all of those things. We'll bring that perspective to them. And it's really a case-by-case basis on what makes sense. For some folks, the private equity partnership might make a lot of sense. For others, it might not. But we try to help them navigate that to figure out what is going to, again, affect the change that they want to make.
Sure. My experience, I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, but it seems to me there's been an increase in market sophistication, not only from, we operate largely in the oral surgery space to the plastic surgery space. Oral surgery has been inundated with private equity involvement. The interesting thing about this is something that dawned on me after a year or two of watching private equity come into the spaces, that they're the people that sold and they're the people that are adamant about not selling. But there's another category that doesn't get talked about, and those are the people that tried to sell and found out they didn't have the EBITDA in place to be able to do that. So what they really found out was, I can't retire. I can't sell this thing. I can't bring private equity in. It's not worth what I thought it was. And maybe I don't have the savings behind me to do what I need to do. So that's increased the sophistication in the market. They now want better marketing. They now need a junior partner to come in and help out. And I don't know if that's something I've shared with you or if you have any insight on that, but I think that private equity moving into a space has a tendency to make people a little more sophisticated.
Yeah, you and I haven't discussed that, but I'm really glad you brought that up, because a lot of the clients that we engage with have explored that, right? And they have found out that either, to your point, the practice wasn't large enough from a revenue standpoint. It didn't have the ingredients that private equity firms are looking for. So that hasn't panned out, so to speak. So they're, okay, now I'm back to square one. What do I do? And I agree with you. So, a lot of times they've explored that. It has not been fruitful. So they're kind of thinking about going the successor route, which we support. Sometimes they, and I know you've seen this too, they say, okay, I'm not at the stage where I'm attracted to a PE group yet. I want to grow to that. So to your point, in this case, they're looking for a more sophisticated media approach, or for us, they're looking to add another provider to get up to a level where they will be an attractive acquisition target for private equity. Right. And absolutely, we see a lot of that. I think over the last year in particular, as interest rates have ticked up and we've seen the market kind of cool a little bit, there's been a lot of practices who thought they were probably going to go the PE route, and it has not ended up coming to fruition. Yeah. So they're looking at other alternatives to grow the practice or to find a successor.
Yeah, there's been a massive influx on the marketing end of things where people are hiring a marketing manager. And for a little while, I didn't really understand it. And then I started realizing, you need the marketing to produce more fruit. You tried to sell and it didn't work, or whatever that is. Have I talked to you about the book Plunder? Anyways, for those listeners out there, the book Plunder is just sort of an overview of what private equity has a tendency to do to a vertical. So I think it's a fun read. It's a little doom and gloom, but I think it's a fun read. Jump to the next question. For younger surgeons with thriving practices who are seeking a partner to help them grow or relieve the overwhelming workload, how do you help them find the right fit?
Yeah, another great question, and I think it's something that as a business owner, certainly you and I can both attest that that can be another overwhelming proposition. Particularly for a young or younger in their career surgeon who has built a successful business, they're wearing a lot of hats, right? I was speaking with a surgeon over the weekend, and they said, I'm the CMO, I'm the CFO, I'm the CEO, I'm the lead surgeon, it's a lot, right? So sometimes there can almost be a catch-22 where they're so busy that they can't recruit or don't have the time to invest in recruitment, and therefore they stay too busy and it becomes, a hamster wheel. So the first thing I would tell that younger surgeon that's overwhelmed and has grown a successful practice, first of all, is congratulations, because it's not easy to do, right? And secondly is that it can be done. It seems like there's not enough hours in the day to take that on. We see it happen successfully for practices all over the country. I think having an outside resource to support that is important, just as they do have, as you mentioned, subject matter experts and other legal, financial, marketing. The recruitment aspect is a role unto itself, and so I think finding support for that, it can be very helpful. A lot of times our clients are just relieved to know, okay, I know they're representing us in this area. It's one less hat I have to wear because I don't have time to put that hat on. And sometimes I think it can be underweighed how much of a job that is to take on. A lot of times it'll look like, well, I had a resident that I worked with, or somebody introduced me and I thought I could make it work, and it didn't work, or it didn't go anywhere for the reasons I discussed previously. It wasn't, well structured or defined. And so I would simply say that it can be done. I think that it takes a plan, and I think that having some support for that endeavor is money well spent.
I agree with you. I mean, I think obviously in my 30s, I started businesses, and I knew I needed a bookkeeper. I knew I needed a CPA. I knew I needed insurance. So I got all those people to do those things. And then as I got into my 40s and approached my 40s, I thought, man, I pay all these people to do all these things, and no one comes to talk to me about this stuff. So then I went to the CFO and I said, hey, when we hire new people, I want to make sure there are people that come in and talk to us about I want trusted advisors. I want people helping me make better decisions, looking at the data, so on and so forth, right? Interesting, because I think the reason I understand the EBITDA piece is then I got older, I moved into my 50s, and then started going like, hey, what's this thing worth? And then realized, right? So, and I think all of us, even our specialty medical partners, follow a similar track, right? Like, I'm going to hang my shingle. I just need someone to talk. I just need the insurance. Now I need to make the wise, I'm spending a lot of money on this stuff. I need to make wise decisions. I need trusted advisors. And then you move into the next level where you're like, hey, I don't just need trusted advisors. I need experts in the field to help me solve and handle these problems. And know your reputation well. And I honestly believe that you're one of those people in this particular area of practice that can help them. So just me saying I appreciate you being on the show again, and thanks for doing that. I'm going to jump to question number 3.
Okay.
So, how do you work with surgeons to solve these recruitment challenges and ensure a smooth transition, whether they're stepping back or scaling their practice?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we do when we partner with a practice is we want to go out and really get to know the organization. You and I talked about the culture of your organization and mine. We want to have that kind of familiarity with these groups. So a big part of what we do is we go out and do an on-site consultation. We want to meet the staff. We love to scrub in and observe surgery so we can see that side of the practice. And we want to really feel what the culture is, so we can try to find the right cultural fit, because I think that's a big part of it. I always tell my clients that if we're operating at max efficiency, we're operating as an extension of your staff. So just to your point, Chris, a trusted advisor, somebody who knows the organization and therefore can try to find the right fit. So understanding the culture is very important. And then the other thing that I touched on earlier is really teasing out what the owner's goals are. Are we looking to grow? If so, in what direction do we want to grow? And a lot of times, just as you've said, for an entrepreneur, a lot of this has been happened on the fly, but there's not always time to get off the treadmill, as we used to say, and really think about where do I want to go? What are my goals? What strategically, what areas do I want to grow in? And so a big part of what we do is just help spur that conversation along and create some introspection for them to say, what is the right fit? Where do I want to go? To your point, is it that I want to reduce my workload and have more free time to be with my family or pursue my hobbies? Or is it pure growth and I just want to, see this thing expand? Maybe it's a combination of both. But so a lot of what we do, I always say, is we go out on site, we kind of put our detective hat on, and we want to figure these things out. Because until we have a unified plan, it doesn't make sense to go out and start engaging candidates. We just don't know who we are yet, what we want. So, proactive part of that and kind of the homework that we do up front is one of the most important parts. And I think that sometimes that's what gets neglected when somebody goes to take on the recruitment component or to bring on a partner. It's like, okay, I'm busy, somebody to show this workload would be good, I know this person, or somebody who I trust introduced me to this person, and 2 surgeons, and okay, kind of a backup napkin, handshake, and here we go. And, a lot of times that doesn't work, unfortunately. So I think
Time that doesn't work.
people say, oh, come on, the partner, bringing on a partner model, that doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work a lot of times, but it's not because it can't work, it's because it wasn't really thought through prior to jumping in. And if you just jump in, then yeah, I agree with you. The odds are it's probably not going to work. So I think it's having that discussion up front is a big part of what we do before we launch. And then when we do launch and we start engaging candidates, it's really, like I said, trying to find that right cultural fit, finding out the similar thing that we did with our client on the candidate side. What are their goals? What do they want to do? How do they like to communicate? And so a lot of that upfront work to try to vet out that right cultural fit, an alignment of goals, and then also, as I mentioned previously, on the client side, outlining a structure so that when we do find that right potential fit and both parties are excited and emotions high, because there's an emotional arc to the process, that we are not then saying, okay, we love each other, now what do we do? Now I need to think about an offer. Now I need to think about a contract, because we've seen that happen a lot too, and it's a recipe for disappointment because all of those things take time to figure out, to go through the attorneys for the legal documents. And so again, we want to have all that lined up so that when we find that right fit and everybody's excited, we can move in a timely manner through the process.
Sure. I appreciate that about you. I think that's true. I have clients that you have done work for. I have clients that you're beginning to talk to do work for. It's interesting to me that one client in particular you brought somebody in for in San Antonio, and now that new addition to the practice, he must text. He texts me almost every morning, and we
Get out.
Yeah, we have conversations about I was having lunch with him in San Antonio a couple months ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm really struggling with this particular part of put myself out there on social." And I said, "Well, just shoot some stuff and then send it to me, and we'll have like a little dialogue about it." And it just became this thing now where he sends me reels and asks me if it should be a story or a reel, and we're both cyclists, and so it's a lot of fun. I do find people that are a good fit for our clients, but you find people that are a good fit for me as well. So I appreciate it.
Hey, once the match has been made, then that's obviously a big part of the battle, and that's our specialization, right? Is handling the recruitment to make the match. But once they're found, setting up from their success, with an expert on the marketing side and the media component like yourself and your company is really crucial, because that is going to have a huge impact on, does it work? Do they ramp up? Is it successful? And I think that's one of the other challenges is it can be the perfect match, but if they don't have additional resources to help market that new surgeon, if the staff isn't aligned in motivation to help this individual be successful, there's not a plan on how we're going to market them, what their specialization is going to be, how we are confident that there's not going to be potential territoriality between the existing surgeon and the new surgeon, that we're augmenting, not duplicating. That has as much or more impact than, are they the right fit? And so I think having a resource like yourself and other areas as they ramp up is every bit as important as who the candidate is, because it can be the right fit, and if the environment wasn't set up for success, then it was dead on arrival. And that individual who you are mentioning, who's a great candidate, he had that experience at a previous practice before we met, and ultimately were able to find a better fit for him. So that's a great example of good candidate, good surgeon, wrong environment,
Sure.
and it didn't work.
Sure. I've been doing this a long time, and there were the days where I'd walk into a practice and they'd be like, the practice administrator would say, "We want you to meet with Dr. So-and-so, who was the junior partner first." And so I'd go in there and I'd meet with them, and they would tell me all the ways that they wanted to be marketed. And then I would go meet with the senior plastic surgeon. And then the meeting would start with, "Okay, I just want to make sure that that person's harder to find on the website. I want to make sure that," and I would think, I used to have this theory that if you were a junior partner, you should have your own marketing. Things have changed. I don't think things are like that anymore. I think things are developed out of the gate to be more win-win. But that brings me to a specific question, which I think I know what the answer is for you. But you go to work to find a home, a senior partner, a junior partner, right? Or a successor. Who do you feel like you work for?
That's a great question, and it is kind of a unique part of what we do. Obviously, we're engaged directly by the client, right, or by the senior, right? They engage our services to help them with the process. But we work as an intermediary between the senior and the junior, if you will. So it's really a two-sided relationship. At the end of the day, we're there to serve our clients, to help them meet their goals. But if we don't engage and really understand the junior, the candidate,
Sure.
and what their goals are, then we're not serving the client. So we really act as an intermediary between the two. But at the end of the day, client, the incumbent, is the one who retains our services, and ultimately we're there to help them find the right fit.
Sure. I had a feeling that's how you were going to answer that question.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of the show. Steve, I know you're an expert. I really appreciate you being on the show. I know your time is valuable, so thank you very much. I look forward to pushing this out to people like you that help me communicate to the Firm Media client base and the potential clients for Firm Media that Firm Media is connected to some of the smartest people in the industry. So I know I've said that multiple times, and I really thank you for being on the show. Like I said, I know that your time is super valuable. This is the part of the show where we ask you for your Ailm Essential Insight. So this is like the social media thing that we're going to push out. Steve Look's Ailm Essential Insight. What's one thing that you would share with our practice administrators or our practice owners that you think it's the most important thing they need to know right now in the industry and doing business?
Yeah, I think I will echo what I had mentioned earlier, which is that, let me start over. So I think I'll echo what I mentioned earlier, which is that there are happy endings. There are successful matches that get made. I think that a lot of clients and groups out there feel like there's no way. That I can't find the right person. I tried, maybe I tried multiple times, and it's just not possible. And I would simply say, keep the faith. It is possible. We see happy marriages made every month and successful transitions made, and it's very rewarding for us to see it. So it can happen. It does happen. Keep the faith. It takes a plan. It takes communication, and it takes a proactive approach to figuring out a lot of these questions before you dive in the pool. But rest assured that there is hope. That's potential successors out there for you, that potential junior partners out there to help you grow your practice. And, we're here to help in any way possible.
It's great insight. Thank you again for being on the show. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.